The blizzard howled across the icy surface of Erebus, a desolate moon far from any major trade routes. Commander Lyanna Shara gripped the controls of her failing scout vessel, her slender blue fingers trembling not just from fear, but from the deadly cold seeping into the cabin. The crash was inevitable now. Her people, the Azurians, had evolved on a warm desert world, their bodies never designed for temperatures below freezing. Already she could feel her thoughts slowing, her limbs stiffening. Emergency protocols failing. The ship's AI announced calmly, as if reporting nothing more serious than a minor inconvenience. Life support critical. Preparing for impact. Lyanna closed her large almond-shaped eyes. The ship shuddered violently as it tore through the moon's thin atmosphere. When it hit the ice, the force threw her against her restraints. Pain flared across her chest, but it was the cold that truly terrified her. Without functioning environmental systems, she would freeze to death within hours. Distress signal activated, the AI said, its voice now fading as power systems failed one by one. Probability of rescue on this unregistered route? Minimal. Lyanna tried to move, to reach the emergency kit, but her body refused to cooperate. Her azure skin was already paling to a sickly gray-blue. She had flowed in such haste, never planning to end up here, so far from the warmth her species needed to survive. "So this is how it ends," she whispered, her breath visible in the rapidly cooling cabin. 12 kilometers away, Dr. Marcus Reed stared at the environmental sensor readings with growing concern. The isolated frontier research outpost wasn't equipped for rescue operations, but the data was clear. Something had crashed on their moon, and against all odds, there were life signs. "We should wait for the corporate response team," Station Chief Hendricks said, looking over Marcus's shoulder. "Protocol is clear on unauthorized visitors." Marcus ran a hand through his short brown hair. "That'll take days in this weather. Whoever is out there won't last that long in these temperatures." "Not our problem, Reed. We're scientists, not rescue workers." Marcus checked the readings again. The life signs were already weakening. "I'm taking a rover," he said, standing up. "The storm's clearing in Sector 7. I can reach the crash site in under an hour." "That's a violation of protocol," Hendricks warned, but made no move to stop him. "Then write me up when I get back." The rover's heaters barely kept the biting cold at bay as Marcus navigated the icy terrain. The storm had indeed lightened, but visibility remained poor. He relied heavily on the rover's sensors, following the faint life signature that pulsed with decreasing strength on his display. When he finally spotted the crashed vessel, his scientific curiosity momentarily overcame his concern. It was clearly not human in design. Sleeker, with curves that suggested an advanced understanding of aerodynamics. But there was no time to admire alien engineering. The life signs were fading rapidly. Marcus donned his extreme weather gear and approached the vessel cautiously. Finding the entry hatch took precious minutes, and forcing it open took several more. When he finally climbed inside, the cold hit him like a physical blow. Without power, the ship's interior was nearly as freezing as the moon's surface. He found her in the cockpit, strapped to what appeared to be the pilot's seat. Her skin was a pale blue-gray, her breathing shallow and slow. Her features were mostly humanoid, but with subtle differences that marked her as definitively alien. The angle of her cheekbones, the lack of visible ears, the delicate ridges along her hairless scalp. "Hello," Marcus said, his voice muffled by his mask. "Can you understand me?" The alien's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises of deep violet. She tried to speak, but only managed a weak sound. "I'm going to help you," Marcus said slowly, already working to free her from the restraints. "You're suffering from extreme cold exposure. I need to get you somewhere warm." When he touched her skin, he was shocked by how cold it felt, colder even than human skin would be in similar circumstances. Her body seemed to have almost no defense against the freezing temperatures. The alien woman tried to resist as he lifted her, but she was too weak to put up any real fight. Marcus carried her to the rover as quickly as possible, his mind racing with questions. Who was she? How had she ended up here? What species could be so vulnerable to cold? Inside the rover, he cranked the heaters to maximum and wrapped thermal blankets around her slender form. Her eyes remained fixed on him, filled with what he recognized as fear and suspicion despite their alien appearance. "My name is Marcus," he said, pointing to himself. "Dr. Marcus Reed. I'm human. I'm trying to help you." The alien woman watched him for a long moment before speaking in a voice that sounded surprisingly melodic despite its weakness. "Lyanna," she said, touching her chest with a trembling hand. "Shara." "Lyanna," Marcus repeated, nodding. "I'm taking you to our research station. We have medical facilities there." She seemed to understand, though whether she actually comprehended his words or just his intentions was unclear. As the rover began its journey back to the station, her eyes closed again, but her breathing had steadied somewhat. Marcus contacted the station. "Hendricks, prepare the medical bay. And keep this quiet for now. Our visitor isn't human." Static crackled over the comm before Hendricks replied. "You're bringing an alien to our station. Have you lost your mind? She'll die otherwise. Her physiology can't handle these temperatures." The silence that followed lasted several seconds. "Fine," Hendricks finally said. "But this is on you, Reed. Whatever happens next, it's your responsibility." Marcus glanced at the alien woman, at Lyanna, as she huddled under the thermal blankets. Perhaps bringing her to the station was a violation of protocol. Perhaps it would create complications he couldn't yet imagine. But watching the color slowly returning to her azure skin, he knew he couldn't have made any other choice. "Hang on," he told her softly. "We're almost there." The medical bay hummed with equipment as Marcus carefully monitored Lyanna's vital signs. 3 days had passed since the rescue, and the alien woman's condition had stabilized, though she remained weaker than he would have liked. Her body temperature, naturally higher than a human's, had finally returned to what he believed was her normal range. "Your cellular structure is fascinating," Marcus said, reviewing the scanner results. He wasn't sure how much English she understood, but speaking helped normalize the situation. "Your cells contain compounds I've never seen before." Lyanna watched him with those striking violet eyes. "My people evolved on Azura Prime," she said in carefully pronounced English. "Hot world. Very dry. No cold seasons." Her voice had a musical quality that made even simple phrases sound like the beginning of a song. The station's translation software had helped bridge their communication gap, though Lyanna had proven remarkably quick at picking up English basics. "That explains your extreme cold sensitivity," Marcus nodded. "Your cellular membranes aren't designed to maintain flexibility at low temperatures." A small smile curved Lyanna's blue lips. "You speak like scientist, not soldier." "I am a scientist. Xenobiologist." Marcus set down his scanner. "I study life forms from different worlds." "And now you study me." There was something in her tone, not accusation, but perhaps wariness. Marcus pulled up a chair beside her bed. "Only to help you recover," he explained. "Your ship's damaged beyond our ability to repair quickly. You'll be our guest until we can arrange proper transport." "Guest?" Lyanna's ridged brow furrowed. "Or prisoner?" The question hung in the air between them. Before Marcus could answer, the medical bay door slid open, and Security Officer Chen entered. "Station Chief wants an update," Chen said, eyeing Lyanna with poorly disguised suspicion. "And Central Command is asking questions about our unexpected power usage." Marcus stood up. "Tell Hendricks I'll report to him directly. As for Command, we're conducting environmental stress tests on local specimens." Chen didn't move. "They'll want documentation, which I'll provide. Later." After a tense moment, Chen left. Marcus sighed and turned back to Lyanna. "Not everyone here is happy about your presence," he admitted. "Your people fear what they don't understand," Lyanna said. "Mine are the same." Over the next week, Lyanna's strength returned rapidly. The medical bay became less a recovery room and more a laboratory where Marcus and Lyanna exchanged knowledge. She explained the basics of her physiology, how her people absorbed solar radiation through their skin, how their homeworld's dual suns had shaped their evolution, how cold disrupted their neural pathways. In turn, Marcus shared information about humans and their adaptability to various environments. Lyanna seemed particularly fascinated by humanity's ability to withstand temperature extremes. "Your species is very resilient," she observed one afternoon as Marcus showed her data on human survival in Arctic conditions. "My people would die within hours without protection in such places." "Adaptation is our specialty," Marcus replied, "though we have our limits too." Lyanna's presence at the station did not go unnoticed by the other researchers. Some, like Dr. Emmett from the botany lab, were curious and friendly, bringing specimens to show her and asking questions about plants on her world. Others kept their distance, watching with suspicion whenever Lyanna was allowed to leave the medical bay to visit other parts of the station. 2 weeks after her arrival, Station Chief Hendricks called Marcus to his office. "This can't continue indefinitely, Reed," Hendricks said, gesturing to the screens showing Lyanna helping Marcus catalog biological samples in the lab. "Central Command is sending an inspection team. They'll be here in 3 weeks." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "She's not fully recovered." "Don't lie to me," Hendricks said sharply. "I've seen the medical reports. She's fine. What she is an unauthorized alien presence on a corporate research station. Do you know what happens to aliens found in corporate space without proper clearance?" Marcus did know. They were detained, interrogated, and often held in isolation facilities while governments and corporations debated their fate. Such diplomatic processing could take years. "She's not a threat," Marcus argued. "She's sharing valuable scientific knowledge." "That's not your call to make. Central Command wants her transferred to the main hub for processing when the inspection team arrives." Marcus left the meeting feeling defeated. When he returned to the lab, Lyanna immediately sensed his mood change. "Something is wrong," she stated, setting down the sample container she'd been examining. Marcus hesitated, then told her about the inspection team and what it meant. "I expected this," Lyanna said, her voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. "No species allows strangers to wander freely among them without questions." "They'll take you away," Marcus said. "The processing facility isn't. It's not a good place." Lyanna touched his hand, the first time she had initiated physical contact. Her skin was warmer than human temperature, smooth like polished stone. "Then we have 3 weeks to find alternatives," she said. That evening, Marcus found Dr. Emmett waiting outside his quarters. "I couldn't help overhearing about the inspection team," Emmett said quietly. "I've been thinking about your alien friend." "Her name is Lyanna," Marcus corrected. "Lyanna, yes." Emmett glanced around to ensure they were alone. "I might be able to help with her ship repairs. Before I was a botanist, I worked in engineering. If you can get me access to her vessel." Marcus felt a spark of hope for the first time since his meeting with Hendricks. "I'd need to take a rover out to the crash site without authorization." "I can help with that too," Emmett said with a small smile. "The environmental monitoring system needs regular calibration. Very important work that requires field trips." The next day, Marcus took Lyanna to the station's observation deck. Through the reinforced windows, they could see the vast icy plains of Erebus stretching to the horizon, beautiful in their desolation. "Why are you helping me?" Lyanna asked suddenly. "Your career is at risk, perhaps more." Marcus considered the question carefully. "When I found you in that ship, freezing to death, I didn't see an alien. I saw someone who needed help." He paused. "And now that I know you, I see someone worth helping, regardless of where you came from." Lyanna's violet eyes studied him with an intensity that made him momentarily self-conscious. "My people have a saying," she finally said. "True understanding begins when we feel another's pain as our own." She turned back to the icy vista. "I think humans may understand this better than we do." The rover bounced across the frozen terrain, its headlights cutting through the perpetual twilight of Erebus. Marcus navigated carefully while Dr. Emmett reviewed schematics on a tablet. In the back seat, Lyanna sat wrapped in thermal layers despite the rover's heating system running at maximum capacity. "We're approaching the crash site," Marcus announced as the dark silhouette of Lyanna's ship appeared on the horizon. "Your vehicle moves so slowly," Lyanna observed, no criticism in her voice, merely stating a fact. "My ship could cross this distance in seconds." When it was working, Emmett added with a friendly smile. The crashed vessel looked smaller than Marcus remembered, half buried in ice that had formed around it since the crash. The three of them worked together to clear the entrance, Lyanna directing their efforts despite being hindered by the cold. Inside the ship, Emmett let out a low whistle. "I've never seen technology like this," he said, running his hands over the control panels. "These circuits aren't electrical. They're some kind of organic synthetic hybrid." "Bioneural pathways," Lyanna explained, moving to what appeared to be the engine room. "They think and adapt like living tissue but perform like machines." For hours, they assessed the damage. The news wasn't good. "The main propulsion system is completely frozen," Emmett finally concluded. "And even if we could thaw it safely, the neural core is damaged. It needs specialized material to repair." "Material not found on your moon," Lyanna added softly. The return journey to the station was quiet, each lost in thought about what the failed repair attempt meant. As they approached the research facility, Marcus broke the silence. "You'll stay with us until we figure something out. We have 3 weeks before the inspection team arrives." 3 weeks to repair what would take specialized facilities on my world months," Lyanna said, but she reached forward and briefly touched his shoulder. A gesture of gratitude, despite the grim reality. Back at the station, life settled into a new routine. Lyanna became a fixture in the research labs, particularly in Marcus's xenobiology department. Her knowledge proved invaluable as she helped analyze specimens collected from Erebus's subsurface ocean. "The cellular structure of these microbes reminds me of plants from the southern deserts of Azura Prime," she explained one evening, adjusting the microscope. "They convert light to energy in a similar way, despite evolving in such different environments." Marcus watched her work, impressed by how quickly she had adapted to human equipment. "Convergent evolution across star systems," he mused. "Your planets are light years apart, yet life found similar solutions." "Perhaps life itself follows universal patterns," Lyanna suggested, looking up from the microscope. The lab lights reflected in her violet eyes. "Like how you and I can speak to each other despite evolving on different worlds." These conversations became the highlight of Marcus's days. They worked together during station hours, then often continued their discussions over meals or in the quiet observation room where they could see the stars. One night, about a week after the failed repair attempt, Lyanna asked Marcus about human customs. "Your people touch each other so often," she noted. "Hands, shoulders, embraces when greeting. Why?" Marcus considered the question. "Physical contact is reassuring to us. It builds trust, shows affection or support. On my world, touch is more formal, reserved for family or ceremonial occasions." She hesitated. "Yet I find myself adapting to your customs. Is this normal? To change so quickly?" "Adaptation is survival," Marcus said. "And sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes it's about connection." The next day, Station Chief Hendricks summoned Marcus to his office. His expression was grim. "Command's inspection team has moved up their schedule. They'll be here in 10 days, not 3 weeks. Marcus felt his heart sink. Why the change? "They know about your alien visitor. Someone on the station has been sending unauthorized communications." Hendricks's eyes were hard. "I've protected you so far, Reed, but this is beyond my control now." "What exactly are they planning to do with her?" "The official term is diplomatic processing," Hendricks said, his voice softening slightly. "But off the record, she'll be studied, questioned, probably kept in isolation while they determine if her presence represents an opportunity or a threat. Marcus left the office with a heavy heart. He found Lyanna in the botany lab, helping Dr. Emmett catalog specimens. "Can we talk?" he asked quietly. They walked to the observation deck, their private retreat where conversations couldn't be easily monitored. When he told her about the inspection team's new timeline, Lyanna showed no surprise. "I felt the change in the station," she said. "More whispers, more covert looks." "We need to accelerate our plans," Marcus said. "Emmett thinks he might be able to adapt some of our power cells to work with your ship's systems, at least enough for short-range flight." Lyanna turned to face him fully. "Why are you risking so much for me? Your career, possibly your freedom." Marcus hadn't fully examined his own motivations until that moment. "When I found you freezing in that ship, I made a choice based on valuing life above rules. Now," he paused, searching for the right words, "now I'm making choices based on knowing you. Who you are matters to me." Lyanna stepped closer, her movements deliberate. She placed her warm palm against his cheek, the most intimate gesture she had ever initiated. "My people believe that understanding comes in stages," she said softly. "First through words, then through shared experience, and finally through," she searched for the English term, "through resonance, when two beings harmonize despite their differences." "And have we reached resonance?" Marcus asked, acutely aware of her touch, the warmth of her blue skin against his. "I believe we are approaching it," she answered with a smile that transformed her alien features into something inexplicably familiar. That night, they began planning her escape in earnest. Emmett provided technical expertise, while Dr. Kapoor from communications offered to create a distraction in the station's monitoring systems when the time came. Even Chen from security, who had initially been most suspicious of Lyanna, quietly provided access codes after hearing what fate awaited her at the processing center. "It seems not all humans fear difference," Lyanna commented as they reviewed their plans in Marcus's quarters. "Fear is often just unfamiliarity," Marcus replied. "You've shown everyone here that different doesn't mean dangerous. On my world, we have remained isolated by choice, fearing contamination from outside influences." Lyanna's voice carried a hint of sadness. "I wonder now how much we have lost because of that fear." Marcus reached out, taking her hand in his, a gesture that now felt natural between them. "Whatever happens, you've changed this station. You've changed me." "As you have changed me," she responded, her fingers intertwining with his, bridging the gap between their worlds. Marcus worked frantically at his terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard as he decoded the message that had just arrived. The contents made his blood run cold. "They know," he said, looking up at Lyanna, who stood nearby, helping Emmett modify power cells for her ship. "Central Command received a transmission from an Azurian vessel. They're demanding your return." Lyanna's blue hand stilled. "My government has found me. The message claims you're a diplomat who's being held against your will." Marcus pushed away from the terminal. "Is that true? Are you a diplomat?" The lab fell silent. Emmett looked between them, sensing the tension. "I should check the environmental controls," he murmured, slipping out and leaving them alone. Lyanna moved to the window, staring out at the icy landscape. "I was a diplomat," she finally said. "Third rank in the Ministry of External Affairs." "Then why did you run? Why crash on a remote moon with no distress call to your people?" She turned to face him, her violet eyes reflecting a deep sadness. "Because I learned things my government wanted kept secret. Plans to isolate our world further, to reject all contact with other species." She hesitated, led by my own family line. Marcus approached her slowly. "You were fleeing political persecution." "I was fleeing execution," Lyanna corrected him, "dressed as a diplomatic mission gone wrong. Much neater that way." Before Marcus could respond, the station alarm blared. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the lab. Station Chief Hendrix's voice came over the comm system. "Attention all personnel. We have received notice that a corporate security vessel will dock in 6 hours. All staff are to prepare for inspection. This is not a drill. Marcus's mind raced. 6 hours. That's sooner than we expected. And my government ship will arrive soon after, Lyanna added grimly. They monitor all communications in this sector. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Their small group of allies gathered in the maintenance bay where they had been secretly preparing Lyanna's ship components. Dr. Kapoor brought updated security protocols, while Chen provided schematics of the station's external doors. The corporate vessel will dock at the main airlock, Chen explained, pointing to the station layout. Standard procedure is for all personnel to gather in the main hall for inspection. That gives us a window to move the repaired components to the rover and reach my ship before they realize I'm missing. Lyanna finished. Marcus studied the timeline they'd mapped out. It's tight, too tight. He looked up at the others. If we're caught, you'll all face charges of corporate treason. Emmett shrugged. Some rules deserve to be broken. The modifications to your ship's power system are untested, Dr. Kapoor warned Lyanna. They might get you off this moon, but reaching any habitable system. I'll take that chance, Lyanna said firmly. As they finalized preparations, Marcus pulled Lyanna aside into the small equipment room. There's something I need to ask, he said quietly. Once you leave here, where will you go? Your people want you dead. Corporate security will flag you as a fugitive. Lyanna's expression softened. There are neutral territories beyond the corporate zones, places where different species coexist. Alone. The question hung between them. Lyanna reached out, taking his hands in hers. That depends on you, she said simply. Marcus felt the warmth of her touch, so different from when he'd first found her freezing in her crashed ship. In the weeks since then, everything had changed. I can't ask you to. You didn't ask, she interrupted. I am. Before he could respond, the station's comm system crackled. Attention all personnel, Hendricks announced, his voice tight with tension. The corporate vessel has increased speed. New arrival time, 90 minutes. Repeat, 90 minutes. Their eyes met in alarm. We need to move now, Marcus said. The next hour was chaos. Their carefully planned timeline collapsed as they rushed to load the modified components onto the rover. Twice they had to hide as security patrols passed by, checks that had never been part of the normal schedule. They suspect something, Chen whispered after the second patrol. Someone's watching us. They finished loading just as the station's external sensors detected the approaching corporate vessel. It was larger than expected, not the usual inspection shuttle, but a full security cruiser. That's not an inspection team, Marcus realized with horror. That's an extraction force. The group gathered one last time near the maintenance bay airlock. The rover was ready, the escape route planned. Dr. Kapoor will trigger communications disruption once you're halfway to the crash site, Chen explained. It should buy you 20 minutes before they realize you're gone. Marcus looked at the people who had become conspirators and friends. Thank you. All of you. Better hurry, Emmett said, checking his watch. Corporate representatives don't appreciate being kept waiting. As they prepared to board the rover, the maintenance bay door slid open. Station Chief Hendricks stood there, his expression unreadable. I thought I might find you here, he said quietly. Everyone froze. Chen moved slightly in front of the others, her security training taking over. Sir, I can explain, Marcus began. Hendricks held up a hand. No need. I've known about your little project for weeks. He stepped into the bay, closing the door behind him. Did you really think I wouldn't notice parts disappearing from inventory? Power fluctuations during unauthorized rover trips. Lyanna moved forward. The responsibility is mine. These people were only saving your life. I know. Hendricks sighed. The question is why I'm going to help you. The statement stunned everyone into silence. Sir, Marcus finally managed. That corporate vessel isn't just here for her, Hendricks explained. The transmission they received mentioned a research team harboring an alien fugitive. They're planning to detain everyone involved for questioning. He looked directly at Marcus. That includes you. You're helping us escape. Lyanna asked, disbelief evident in her voice. I'm helping my people avoid corporate detention, which happens to align with helping you. Hendricks handed Chen a data chip. This will override the main gate controls without triggering alarms. You have 40 minutes before I'm required to report your absence. As the others prepared the final launch sequence, Marcus turned to Hendricks. Why? You've always followed the rules. The older man's expression softened slightly. 30 years ago, I made a different choice than you're making now. I've spent decades wondering what might have happened if I'd chosen differently. He glanced at Lyanna. Some opportunities don't come twice. The corporate vessel was visible now, its lights breaking through Erebus's thin atmosphere as it descended toward the station. Time to go, Chen urged from the rover's door. As Marcus climbed aboard next to Lyanna, Hendricks called out one last time, "Read." Marcus looked back. "Don't waste it," Hendricks said simply, then turned to head back to the main complex, where he would soon greet the corporate security team with no knowledge of any escape plan. The rover's engines hummed to life as they sealed the doors. "Ready?" Marcus asked Lyanna, who sat beside him, her eyes fixed on the stars visible through the viewport. "For whatever comes next," she answered, her warm hand finding his as the rover moved forward, carrying them into an uncertain future. The repaired ship hummed with energy as it broke free from Erebus's weak gravity. In the pilot's seat, Lyanna's blue fingers danced across the control panel with practiced precision. Beside her, Marcus watched in wonder as the icy moon fell away beneath them, growing smaller until it was just another white dot among the stars. "The modified power cells are holding," Lyanna announced, checking the readings. Emmett's adaptation was brilliant. "Will it be enough to reach the neutral territories?" Marcus asked. He still found it hard to believe he had left everything behind. His career, his research, his entire life on Earth, all in the course of a few frantic hours. "We have enough power for one jump through fold space," Lyanna said. "After that, we'll need to find a friendly port." The ship's sensors suddenly flashed warning signals. Lyanna's expression tightened as she studied the display. 2 vessels approaching. One corporate design. She paused, one Azurian diplomatic cruiser. They had been found. The corporate security vessel had launched from the station sooner than expected, and the Azurian ship must have been hiding in the system all along waiting. "Can they catch us before we make the jump?" Marcus asked, fighting to keep his voice calm. "It will be close," Lyanna admitted. She activated the ship's communication system. "They're hailing us." The screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of an older Azurian male. His blue skin was darker than Lyanna's, marked with ceremonial patterns that indicated high rank. "Commander Tishara," he said, his tone formal but with unmistakable menace. "Your unauthorized departure from Azurian space has caused considerable concern." Lyanna straightened in her seat. "First Minister Valen, I'm surprised you came personally to retrieve a minor diplomat." The man's expression hardened. "You are no minor concern, especially in the company of an alien." His eyes flicked to Marcus briefly. "Return to our vessel immediately. We will discuss your rehabilitation." Marcus felt a chill at the way the word was pronounced. Lyanna had told him what rehabilitation meant in her culture, a complete mental reprogramming that left little of the original personality intact. "I must decline, Minister," Lyanna replied calmly. "My ship has sustained damage. We're on an emergency course to the nearest neutral port for repairs." "Lies do not become you, Tishara," Valen snapped. "Our scans show your vessel is preparing for a fold space jump. You have stolen classified technology and shared it with an alien species. The penalty is clear." Before Lyanna could respond, a second communication came through. A human woman in a corporate security uniform appeared on the split screen. "Research vessel T-937, This is Corporate Security Commander Reyes. You are harboring a fugitive and have stolen corporate property. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Marcus leaned forward. "We've stolen nothing. The components used to repair this ship were my personal property." "Dr. Reed," Commander Reyes said, recognition flashing in her eyes, "your actions constitute a breach of your employment contract. Return to the station immediately, and we can discuss terms." The ship's navigation system chimed, indicating the fold space calculations were complete. They could jump at any moment. "We need to go now," Marcus said quietly to Lyanna. She nodded slightly, her fingers hovering over the activation sequence. To the two commanders on the screen, she said, "I suggest you keep your vessels at a safe distance. Our fold space drive has been modified and may create unusual disruption patterns. This is your final warning," Velen growled. Lyanna cut the communication. "Hold tight," she told Marcus. "Modified jumps can be disorienting." She pressed the sequence. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the universe seemed to fold in on itself. Stars stretched into lines of light, and Marcus felt a sensation like being pulled in all directions at once. His vision blurred, his stomach turned, and then, suddenly, calm. They emerged into an unfamiliar star system, a bright yellow sun illuminating a scattered field of asteroids. "The Vendari Belt," Lyanna said, relief evident in her voice. "We made it. Are we safe here?" Marcus asked, still recovering from the jump. "Safe enough for now. The Vendari are traders, neutral in most conflicts. They'll grant us temporary sanctuary while we make repairs and plan our next move." As they approached the largest asteroid in the belt, Marcus could make out structures built into its surface, a sprawling spaceport carved from the rock itself. Ships of various designs moved about, some unlike anything he had ever seen in human space. "You said your people have remained isolated," Marcus observed. "Yet you seem familiar with this place." Lyanna's violet eyes met his. "Before I became a diplomat, I was a navigator on exploratory missions. I saw things that changed how I viewed the universe and my place in it." She paused. "Things my government wanted forgotten." "Like what?" "Like proof that cooperation between species creates more than either could achieve alone." She gestured to the approaching spaceport. The Vendari Belt was once just rocks in space. Now it's a crossroads for a dozen species. The ship's communication system activated again, this time with a melodic, clicking language Marcus couldn't understand. Lyanna responded in kind, then explained. "They're granting us docking permission. I told them we're researchers studying interspecies cooperation." "Are we?" Marcus asked with a small smile. "We could be," she replied. "The universe lacks formal studies on human-Azurian compatibility." As they docked at the spaceport, Marcus was struck by the diversity of beings moving through the arrival area. Some humanoid, others completely alien in form. No one seemed troubled by differences in appearance or biology. Their first days in the Vendari Belt passed quickly. They secured lodging in the trader's quarter and began seeking parts to properly repair Lyanna's ship. Though they kept a low profile, word spread quickly of the unusual pair, the blue-skinned Azurian and her human companion. One evening, as they sat in a small cafe overlooking the spaceport's main concourse, a Vendari trader approached their table. The insectoid being clicked something to Lyanna, who listened carefully before responding. "What did he want?" Marcus asked after the Vendari departed. "He offered us work," Lyanna explained. "There's a delegation from a newly contacted world arriving next month. They're seeking guides who understand both isolated and integrated cultures." She looked at Marcus thoughtfully. "The Vendari think we would be ideal. Someone who chose to leave isolation, and someone who chose to embrace the unknown." "Ambassadors," Marcus said, testing the word. "From fugitives to diplomats in 2 weeks. Is that so surprising? Who better to bridge worlds than those who have crossed the void between them?" Later that night, standing on the observation deck of their small apartment, They watched ships coming and going from the spaceport, points of light moving against the backdrop of stars. "Do you regret it?" Lyanna asked quietly, leaving everything behind. Marcus considered the question seriously. He thought of the research station on Erebus, of Earth with its familiar blue skies, of the career he had built over decades. "I left things," he finally said, "but I found something more important." "And what was that?" "A future I couldn't have imagined." He took her warm hand in his. "Sometimes you have to leave the familiar to discover what's possible." Above them, a ship activated its full space drive, disappearing in a flash of light, like a spark igniting in the darkness, carrying its own small piece of understanding across the stars.